The Atlanta Braves are reportedly calling up one of their top pitching prospects and right-hander Owen Murphy. Here's everything you need to know before his debut. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, a production of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. I want to talk about that ninth inning yesterday, right? The decision to leave Carlos Carrasco in the game. He has the big inning in the top of the ninth. Atlanta scores a bunch in the bottom, but they're still down and they lose. But before we do that, reports coming out from friend of the show, Gore Avadak, is that the Atlanta Braves, some point in time this morning, that's why this episode's dropping early, are going to promote pitching prospect Owen Murphy to the majors. Let's talk about who he is, what he does differently, and why he's different from some of the other guys the Braves have called up recently, and has stuff that legitimately could be good enough to survive right away in the majors. So quick refresher on the background here. 20th overall pick in the 2022 MLB draft out of high school in Chicago. And actually, this is the same draft as J.R. Ritchie, and they both get billed as first rounders. People forget Owen Murphy was selected before J.R. Ritchie. Ritchie is typically in the top of the conversation because he got to the majors faster. Both these guys had Tommy John, but Ritchie had it first, so he was able to come back sooner and resume his march to the majors. So that's why Ritchie was ahead of Murphy and got a little bit more of the, I'm going to say attention, but in some ways, Owen Murphy is the better pitching prospect. He's listed at 6'1", 190. He started the year in Double-A. And the thing is, he finished last year in High A Rome. Entire year in the lower minors. This year starts in Double-A. 5 starts. From a statistical perspective, isn't actually that good. 6.10 ERA, 1-1 record. But in the Braves system, they don't always have you trying to get the best stats. They have you working on stuff in the game. They saw what they liked. They moved him to Gwinnett. He put up a 3.88 ERA in his first 11 starts, 60 and a third innings. 65 strikeouts to 20 walks. What you need to know about Owen Murphy is he is different than a lot of the guys you've seen recently. J.R. Ritchie's a great example of this, but Hurston Waldrop is to an extent as well. If you think to J.R. Ritchie and Waldrop both, these are guys, they've got some sort of decent swing and miss pitch, right? For Waldrop, it's the splitter, which is really good. For Ritchie, he's got the curveball, he's got some stuff, it's fine. One of the big issues with J.R. Ritchie is he hasn't been able to miss enough bats. But he also throws all 3 fastballs because none of his fastballs on their own are that good. And Waldrop was the same boat. Waldrop was throwing a 4-seam fastball, and the 4-seamer wasn't that good. So what did the Braves do? They gave them multiple fastballs so that in a fastball count or a fastball situation, they could throw a fastball, but it wasn't necessarily a 4-seamer. They could throw a cutter, they could throw a sinker, or the 4-seamer. Owen Murphy doesn't do any of that. He has a sinker, he has a cutter. But Owen Murphy's most used pitch by far is his 4-seam fastball. And the reason for that is it is borderline elite. Here's the thing. It averages 92.3 miles an hour, which is really odd to say that it's elite when it has below average velo for the majors. The average fastball velo in the majors is like 95 miles an hour. It's an all-time high this year, unless you ask an old school baseball player who will say that guys threw much harder in their day than they do now. The reason that Owen Murphy is able to throw this four-seam fastball that much, instead of needing to go heavy on mixing in a sinker and a cutter, and again, the sinker's 4% usage in AAA this year. The cutter's 15%. It's there, but not nearly as much, is because the shape of the four-seam fastball for Murphy, it has 18.5 inches of induced vertical break, which, quick reminder, induced vertical break is the backspin of the ball and how the fastball looks like it's not dropping as much as it should, right? The backspin helps counteract some of the pull of the ball from gravity down, okay? The MLB average on induced vertical break is like 15 to 16 inches, and when you hit 18, you're in elite territory. So it has elite amounts of vertical movement. And because of that, it is very effective up in the zone. This is, if you think about prime Spencer Strider, he's throwing a lot harder, right? He was throwing 96, 97, but it's the same idea. Elite induced vertical break, meaning you can throw that pitch up in the zone and it's going to work really well. Hitters instinctively have muscle memory as to what a baseball should look like, the flight of a pitched ball should look like, a mental picture. Every hitter builds like an internal library of release points and arm angles and ball flights. And so instinctively, a hitter just knows where a pitch is going to end up based on what it looks like coming out of the hand as the guy throws it. That's why the most advanced pitching machines, those tragic machines I told you about, that's why those machines, one of the big developments was not only can they throw everything with the right spin and all that, but they can synchronize the pitch of the ball, the release of the ball, with video. So you can get the visual look of not only the pitch, but the pitcher releasing it. When you are different in some way, whether it's Cam Caminiti dropping his arm angle down like Chris Sale, whether it's Owen Murphy having additional elite levels of induced vertical break, whatever it is, when you're different, that is how you miss bats. That is how you are able to disrupt that hitter's inherent memory of what that pitch is supposed to do. Owen Murphy, his fastball does that. His ranks in the minor leagues this year on a lot of different categories are not only really good, but elite. Contact in the zone. So when you swing at a pitch in the strike zone, his zone contact rate allowed in AAA 75.8 miles an hour. That is 97th percentile in baseball. 1 out of every 4 swings at a pitch in the strike zone they miss, which doesn't sound like a lot. That's a lot. And because he has the ability to miss pitches in the zone, to miss bats in the zone with his four-seam fastball, that lets him build the entire arsenal around that. Whether it's the four-seam fastball, the cutter has a similar whiff rate in the zone, right? The fastball by itself, 27.5% whiff rate. The cutter, 28.8. Because he has these pitches that work well in the zone, his slider and curveball, the slider, which hits that magic number that I always talk about of 85 miles an hour for a gyro slider, but 40.6% whiff rate in AAA. The curveball, 33.3% whiff rate in AAA. Even his sinker misses 28% of bats. He just is really good at missing bats in the zone. He has a changeup as well. It has similar movement to his sinker with 10 inches of more drop. So he's got a couple different paths where he can attack guys. He can start with four-seamers up. He can go four-seamer and then cutter and then slider. He can go four-seamer, slider, curveball. He can play a little bit of vertical, or he can do a lot of vertical, right? He can take the four-seamer and he can run a sinker off the plate, off of it, which is really good if he's facing a lefty. He can run that sinker away from that lefty. And then he's got a changeup that can look like that sinker and drop below. There's a lot of different ways that Owen Murphy can attack a hitter, but it all comes back to the fact that he can miss bats in the zone with an elite fastball. Now, it's not going to be perfect when he comes up, right? One, we don't know the usage as of now. I'm recording this on Sunday night, about 10 p.m. Eastern, and the report is just that he's coming up. We don't know the usage. I would imagine he is going to be available out of the bullpen, and if he's not needed out of the pen, he'll get a start in the Pirates series. I would imagine that's the situation. I also don't know for sure what the corresponding moves are. We know Martín Pérez is going to go on the injured list. You have to believe Carlos Carrasco is going to get DFA'd. So I would assume they're calling up Murphy in Carrasco's spot. And then you would assume that they're calling up some other reliever, somebody who hasn't been down there for 15 days to replace Pérez. Maybe James Karinchak comes back up so that you have a full-size bullpen again and you have a fresh long man in Owen Murphy. And then if you don't use him in a start or don't use him in relief on Monday or maybe Tuesday, you use him and let him make his debut either on Tuesday against Paul Skeens in Pittsburgh, or you use him Wednesday or Thursday or some point in time in this upcoming series. Side note here, I hate how the Braves do this. I am in favor of using pitching prospects out of the bullpen to let them adjust to getting major leaguers out. What I don't love is taking a starter and saying, you may work out of the pen today, or you may get a start tomorrow. A lot of these kids have not been relievers. And it's a different mindset, not knowing when you're going to pitch versus being a starting pitcher who likes to be on a routine and has a pre-start routine that you do and the preparations that you do to go out and perform. So and again, we don't know. I might be getting mad if it's not going to happen. They might just have him set to start on Tuesday or something. But odds are they're going to say this sometime this morning, or I guess this afternoon when Walt Weiss meets with the media, that Murphy's available out of the pen to provide length if they need it. And if they don't need it, they're probably going to use him as a starter against the Pirates. Again, don't love how they do this. But the promotion itself of Owen Murphy is, one, incredibly exciting, and two, it is different from what we've seen from other Braves pitching prospects. I think the other big thing that's worth talking about here, real quick before we go to break, 3 top 5 pitching prospects make their debut before the All-Star break, and Fuentes and Richie and Murphy. This is the wave, right? This is the wave of arms that we were expecting. Fuentes wasn't originally part of this wave. Like when you mapped this out 2 years ago, you had Richie, you had Murphy, you didn't have Fuentes as part of this. Atlanta recognized how advanced he was. He was aggressive. They found a role for him. Things like this is the strength of the Braves organization. This is what the Braves can do. We've got a lot of attention on the hitting prospects, and trust me, we're going to talk about them. But this right here, this is the strength of the Atlanta Braves. And the fact that they were able to do this, to have 3 top 5 organizational pitching prospects all be able to debut before the All-Star break, is a big deal. And the good news is, like Murphy was going to have a 40-man decision made anyway. This was his Rule 5 year. You were going to have to put him on the 40-man anyway, although there's probably not going to be a Rule 5 draft this December because of the lockout. Anyway, the point is, huge deal for the Braves. We're going to get into more of this in a few minutes. But first, I want to talk about Sunday's loss. 10-9 to the Mets. And a lot of the conversation, a lot of people in the postcast were mad at Walt Weiss. And I think that was a little bit misguided. Let's talk about what he said about using Carlos Carrasco in the ninth. We'll do that next right here on Braves Today. But first, this episode's brought to you by our friends at IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom-infused coffees are the tasty, low-sugar brain and body fuel that you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack's a great way to try all of the IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And all IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom-infused coffees. And the Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. Right now, IQ Bar is offering Braves Today listeners 20% off of all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Braves lost 10-9 on Sunday afternoon. Really frustrating, right? And the biggest bit of attention was on Carlos Carrasco pitching the 9th inning with the Braves down for 2. And I think the reason that it got so much attention is the Braves were not down by 2, we're not down by 2 for very long. The Mets scored 5 runs in the top half of the inning. It went from 5-3 to 10-3 in a hurry. And the frustrating part here is the Braves came around and not only scored 6 runs in the bottom half of the inning, the bottom half of the 9th, to make this a 10-9 game, they had the tying run on 3rd and the winning run on 2nd and weren't able to get them in. So it looked like a blowout loss. Atlanta made it a 1-run loss. And a lot of the attention has gone on Walt Weiss for sending Carlos Carrasco back out for the 9th inning. Carrasco pitched the 8th, and he got through the 8th clean. Bo Bichette leadoff single. I say clean. He faced the minimum. Bo Bichette leadoff single. Jared Young lined out. He was pinch hitting for Mark Vientos. And then Carson Bench grounded into a double play. So he faced the minimum through 1 inning. He got through it. Yes, he allowed a single to Bo Bichette, 79.4 miles an hour. Not a big deal. Jared Young lined out, 83.6 miles an hour. Not really a big deal. And then it was like a 92 mile an hour ground out by Carson Bench. 3 balls, none of them hard hit. 3 outs at the end of the day, whatever. But then they sent him back out for the 9th. Here is what Walt Weiss said about the decision. Some days you can keep chasing games and you're equipped to do that. Some days you're not. We could chase it for 7 innings today. That's what we did, and they did a great job keeping it a 2-run game through 7. At that point, we were out of those high leverage bullets. So if you weren't able to watch the game, rain delayed, I think like an hour and a half. Like it was a longer delay. And when the game started up, neither pitcher was fresh. Martín Pérez gives up a run in the top of the first. Braves score 3 off of Noel McLean in the bottom of the first. Mets score 4 in the top of the second. So they're up 5-3. From that point, the pitcher's locked in. Martín Pérez, He retired 2 of the first 11 batters he faced. And then from that point on, he retired 9 consecutive batters he faced. But in the 5th inning, he takes a line drive from Juan Soto off the left forearm, his pitching arm. He rebounds and tosses to first and gets the out, but he comes out of the game. And side note here on this, after the game, Walt Weiss said x-rays were negative. They don't believe there's a fracture there, but more imaging is needed, meaning a CT scan, and that Perez is going to go on the IL. The question is, how long will he be out? If this is a bone bruise, does he miss a couple weeks and then he's back? If this is a fractured forearm, and the kind of like some sort of hairline thing that doesn't show up on the initial x-ray with all the swelling, but the CT scan will pick it up, he could be done for the rest of the season. So because of this, Atlanta's bullpen now has to cover the rest of the game. Tyler Kinley comes in, he warms up on the mound. He gets the last 2 outs of the 5th inning. Danny Young pitches the 6th. Dylan Dodd pitches the 7th. They get Carrasco in the 8th. I think what Walt Weiss said is very illuminative when you think about the decision to go with Carrasco for the 9th. I'm going to read the quote again, and I'm going to stop and point things out here. Quote, "Some days you can keep chasing games, and you're equipped to do that. Some days you're not. We could chase it for 7 innings today. That's what we did, and they did a great job keeping it into a 2-run game through 7. At that point, we were out of those high-leverage bullets." Meaning, other than your designated setup man and closer, so which last night was Didier Fuentes and Raisel Iglesias, they used all the other guys who were available. Dylan Lee was not available. And you have to remember, they are pitching with a short bullpen. Because Bryce Elder didn't start over the weekend, they don't have an 8-man bullpen and a 5-man rotation. They have a 6-man rotation and a 7-man bullpen. Dylan Lee was not available because of usage. And so they throw Kinley, they throw Danny Young, they throw Dylan Dodd. Those guys do a good job. 1 hit allowed, 3 strikeouts, no runs. They kept it a 2-run game. At the end of 7, Walt Weiss's decision was, if we have a lead, I can go to Didier Fuentes and Raisel Iglesias. If we don't have a lead, I've got to go to Carrasco. That's all the pitchers I have left. So Cookie goes in for the 8th. He gets out of the 8th. And the complaint that everybody has, I say everybody, I complained at the time when it happened, is that they didn't go to Didier Fuentes or somebody else for the 9th. And the logic that I've seen here is you scored 6 runs in the bottom half of the inning. So if Carrasco hadn't given up 5, you would have won the game. And there's a couple things to think about here with this. And I want to make clear, because I've had some, I don't want to assume they're bad faith comments recently, but I've had some folks come on here and get mad at me for trying to explain why I think the team did what they did. This is me explaining what Walt Weiss did. This is not me endorsing the decision to go to Carrasco. I didn't like it at the time. I understand it. I don't like it. This is me explaining Walt Weiss's perspective, okay? You scored 3 runs in the first. From the 2nd inning to the 8th inning, not even the 7th, from the 2nd inning to the 8th inning, you had 4 base runners. 2 of those base runners came in the 2nd inning. So 3rd through 8th, you had 2 base runners. One of them came via error. And I said in the scouting report yesterday that Nolan McLean was going to get his, and he got his. He was, after that 1st inning, and again, with the rain delay, these guys were all screwed up and stuff. But after his 6 innings, 5 strikeouts. When he left, New York went to the leverage relievers. They went to Brooks Raley, then they went to Luke Weaver. Those two guys, 7th and 8th, no hits, no walks, 3 strikeouts, and the batted balls they allowed, 58.1 miles an hour, 70.6 miles an hour, 81.6 miles an hour. No hard hit balls, 3 balls in play against the 2 setup men before the closer in the 9th. If you are Walt Weiss, the decision you have to make is, hey, 1, we chased for 7 innings. We couldn't narrow the lead. I'm going to go to Cookie. Cookie held them in the 8th. If you take a lead, it's obvious you're going to go to Fuentes or Iglesias, get the save, and win the game. They didn't get a lead. Not only did they not get a lead, they didn't mount an actual threat to get a lead. So with the information you have at the time, you don't get the benefit of hindsight to say, hey, you scored a bunch of runs in the bottom half of the 9th. You don't know about the 6 runs coming in the 9th off of Huascar Brazoban and then a rushed and hurried Devin Williams into the game. You don't know about that. When you look at the 2nd through the 8th innings, and they had 4 base runners, 2 of them came in the 2nd inning, a 3rd one came via error. There's no reason Walt Weiss has been, there was no reason, no evidence given to Walt Weiss that the offense was going to take the lead in the bottom of the 9th. I think, honestly, if Atlanta had gotten runners on in every inning and had gotten guys into scoring position and hadn't got them in because of things like great defensive plays on line drives in the infield or an outfield assist at the plate and all of this stuff, and Atlanta was constantly threatening New York and coming that close to getting it and just couldn't put the run across, the way that Walt Weiss has managed this season, he probably goes with a Fuentes there. He doesn't pop Iglesias, but he probably says, hey, this offense has pushed and pushed, and they've come so close. I'm going to run the risk, and by run the risk, almost certainly not have Fuentes for the finale on Monday because I think we can win this game. And if you step back and take an objective look at where Atlanta's offense was after that crazy first inning, you don't have any reason to think other than they've been good this season and they did better in the previous games of this series. You don't have any evidence from Sunday that this offense was about to bust out and score a bunch of runs off of the Mets. So I don't like the decision to leave Carrasco in for the 9th. I understand it, though. And honestly, this is probably a situation where the real issues here is not Walt Weiss's decision to leave Carrasco in for the 9th. The real issues here is, one, that Carrasco's still on the roster in the first place, that he's even an option to go into a game, versus an Anthony Molina who came up and didn't get used and got sent back down, or some other long man. Issue number 1. Issue number 2, you're running a short bullpen because you saved a roster spot over the weekend for a pitcher who couldn't pitch. I'm assuming the way that the team does this, those of us on the media email list, we get the game notes before the finale of every series. Well, we get game notes every day. But in the game notes for the finale of the series is when they announce the starters for the next series. And if today's game notes that we get later today don't have Bryce Elder starting one of these 3 games, that is a problem. Because that means if he's still not ready to pitch, you should have just put him on the injured list when you decided to skip him over the weekend, let him be out until the All-Star break, and had another reliever in the pen. Carrying 6 starters and 7 relievers, combined with the fact that the offense wasn't doing anything, and that one of those 7 relievers was Carlos Carrasco, is the reason you lost on Sunday. It's not that Walt Weiss went with Carrasco. It's that he didn't have any other option and the offense didn't force his hand. Again, I hate the decision to leave Carrasco in. I'm not a fan of Carrasco. But if you impartially put yourself into Walt Weiss's shoes, you get it. I understand. And if he had put Fuentes in the game, let's game this out. Let's assume that he puts Fuentes into the game. And let's assume, and we don't know this, let's assume that Fuentes holds the Mets scoreless. 1, do the Mets still go with Brazoban or do they go with Devin Williams? If it is a close game for Brazoban versus a blowout, does he give up a bunch of runs? Brazoban was tagged. He was charged with 5 runs, and Devin Williams was charged with 1. And they got Devin Williams up in a hurry. If Devin Williams has a standard warm-up, does he give up the 3 hits? Does he give up the run? Does he do all of that? But more importantly, if you throw Fuentes there trying to chase the win that from an impartial perspective didn't look like it was coming from that offense, and then now you don't have him for Monday, are you just pushing this decision to Monday? I'm not saying it's a perfect analogy, right? Maybe you get to Monday and you blow the Mets out and you wouldn't have needed Fuentes or Iglesias anyway. And again, that's a thing we don't know. You have to make the decision with the information you have at the time, and you have to evaluate the decision with the information the person who made it had at the time. And at the time, you can see why Walt Weiss would have done what he did. I'm not endorsing it, but I get it. And the ultimate failure here is not Walt Weiss going with Carrasco in the 9th. It's not having another reliever at the major league level, not having a better option than Carrasco to cover 2 innings, and the offense not doing anything for 7 innings. Those are the real issues. The side effect, the symptom of all of those issues is Walt Weiss was stuck in pretty much an untenable position. If he left Carrasco in, which he did, and Carrasco gave up runs and we lost, it's going to look like a bad decision. If he went to Fuentes or Iglesias and then we lost, and you needed one of these guys on Monday, we were going to ask, why did he pitch in that game? I did this. Tuesday night, I asked why you threw Raisel Iglesias in that game when it was not close, because then you needed him on Wednesday, and then you didn't have him on Thursday because he had pitched a back-to-back. They're not giving Fuentes back-to-backs. He has 1 all year. So if you pitched him tonight, he was down for the finale. You just didn't have him. Again, I don't like the decision, but I get the decision. And the real failure here is having Carlos Carrasco on the roster in the first place. We are at the point he's been DFA'd like 7 times. Nobody has claimed him. You sign him to a minor league deal every time, and then you bring him back. And at a certain point, you need to break that cycle. Sign him to the minor league deal. Let him be a veteran mentor in Gwinnett. Stop calling him up. Or don't sign him to the minor league deal. That's the real issue here, is that Carlos Carrasco keeps getting all of these opportunities, and it's not just blowouts. It's 2-run games. Let's take one more break. When we come back, I want to talk about AJ Smith-Shawver's second rehab stint and how there is a path to the Braves not needing to make a trade for a starting pitcher at the deadline. Not a good idea. I'm not saying let's do it. I'm saying there's a path. Let's talk about the state of Braves pitching for the rest of the season next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby, my co-host Bandit's back there asleep. He's been sleeping through these storms, thank goodness. AJ Smith-Shawver had another rehab start last night for the Augusta Green Jackets. And we are honestly at the point where AJ Smith-Shawver is probably not getting very much as far as a challenge in Augusta. Kind of remind you real quick on this. His first minor league rehab start was on June 30th. He went 3 innings with 3 hits, 1 run. It was a solo shot, no walks. He struck out 4. Through 41 pitches, 29 of them were strikes. Velo was looking good, mid-90s. He pitched last night. 4 innings, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 4 strikeouts. Was sitting mid to upper 90s on the 4-seamer, 95 to 97. He's throwing like a true cutter now, 89 to 91. He has that split change. He's throwing in the mid-80s. And he's got what I saw some people were calling a slider, but it looks like a curveball, 77 to 79, right? Got a really nice strikeout on a splitter on a lefty. The 1 hit came off a cutter that was up in a little bit of a location where he didn't mean to leave it. But he's looking really good. The thing that surprises me, oftentimes when you see guys come back from Tommy John surgery, elbow surgery, all that stuff, is it feels like the control sometimes is one of the last things to come back. It's different for everybody. Sometimes it's the control. Sometimes it's the velocity. AJ looks like he has the velocity. Looks like he has the control. The Braves are able to give him 30 days on rehab, like everybody gets, but pitchers who had elbow surgery on their throwing elbows can get 3 additional 10-day extensions of that rehab. So he can spend 60 days on rehab. I'm at the point where I don't think you need to do that. Now, they need to move him up. I don't know if they're going to take this slow and go from Augusta to Columbus for his next start. Sometimes we've seen the Braves go complex to single A to triple A with guys who are major leaguers. And I think it's fair to say that AJ Smith-Shawver is a major leaguer. He established himself last year. He is a major leaguer. This is not a question about does he belong in the majors or not. Yes, he does have options. But last year, he made, 9 starts with a 3.86 ERA, struck out 42 and 44 to third innings, gave up 4 home runs. FIP was right in line with his ERA. Whip rate was a little higher than you would have liked, but he showed he is a major league pitcher. And so now you're in this position of you just lost Martín Pérez. We don't know what's going to happen with Bryce Elder, but I feel like we'll find out more later today. I'm assuming he's fine or they would have already put him on the IL. So right now in the majors, you have Chris Sale is your undisputed number 1, right? We're not questioning that. Behind him, in no uncertain order, you have Hurston Waldrop, who has the swing and miss stuff. He's still working his way back, control and everything, but he has the swing and miss stuff. You have Ronaldo Lopez, who since he returned to the rotation, has looked to be closer to the 2024 form than at any time since he had the shoulder surgery. The slider is sliding again. The locations are crisp. The velo has gotten better. He's not reaching back and grabbing 100 when he needs it, but he's sitting at a more consistent velo than he was when he first returned this year. So, postseason series, you've got 3 starters right there. You also, we're assuming you have Bryce Elder. You have Grant Holmes, who can do a lot of different things. Again, I think his best role is utility pitcher out of the pen, but you've got Grant Holmes. You just called up Owen Murphy. We don't know what he's going to do. We don't know what he's going to look like. We don't know if he's going to be able to stick right away. Some guys do, like Spencer Schwellenbach. Some guys don't, like J.R. Ritchie didn't this year. I will say, though, Ritchie's relief on Saturday. He was missing more bats. He had a really good strikeout of Juan Soto on a curveball. He was doing a better job at getting whiffs than he had done in some of his starts. When you add in like Ritchie, there's 7 guys right there. And that doesn't count A.J. Smith-Shawver. That doesn't count. We can't rely on them, but that doesn't count if you get anything from Spencer Strider or Spencer Schwellenbach. Best case scenario here, if everybody works out and everybody stays healthy, which never happens, but best case scenario here, you've got 10 potential starters by September. And the problem is, you have leverage arms in the pen that you're not going to get rid of. You've got Raisel Iglesias. You've got Dylan Lee. You are, after the All-Star break, supposed to get Robert Suarez back. Didier Fuentes is working as a leverage arm and a very good one right now. You've got some faith in Dylan Dodd. You've got some faith in Tyler Kinley. They're developing some faith in Danny Young. He's pitched 2 of the last 3 days, and he's looked good both times. I'm not saying this is the way they should do this. There is a world where Atlanta looks at the pitchers that they have, all those names I just mentioned, and say, if we get to the postseason, we can find 3 starts among that group of guys. Sale's going to take 1 if he's healthy, right? We're assuming they're healthy here. Sale's going to take 1. Maybe you throw Waldrop in game 2. Maybe the plan is like, you have somebody ready to piggyback with him. Maybe you throw Raylo in game 3, and Grant Holmes is on tap to piggyback with one of them. Or maybe you combine Waldrop and Holmes, and then you combine Lopez and Smith-Shawver, right? Find some guys who do some different things, right? The splitter guy is being followed up by the slider guy, Waldrop to Holmes. Raylo to Smith-Shawver, the slider guy is being followed up by the splitter guy, the split change guy, right? You're finding different things. You're keeping hitters off balance. I don't think they should do that. I'm not endorsing that plan. I'm saying there's a world where you could see them try it. There's a world where you can see them say, between Owen Murphy and all of these injured guys and the guys we currently have, we think we're good. I think they should go get a guy. I think go trade for Casey Mize. He's shown this year when he is healthy, this is what he can do. There's a little bit of injury risk there, but he's a Southern guy. He grew up watching the Braves. We've seen Atlanta do this before. They claimed Ha-Seong Kim for the final month of the season in 2025. Why? They wanted to get a head start on introducing him to the organization and getting him comfortable with the franchise, with the city, with the clubhouse, so that they had a leg up in free agency negotiations. AA has not done nearly enough in free agency and trades to reinforce the rotation to everybody's liking. If this offseason is going to be different, if they have plans to go grab one of these starters with the money that's being freed up from Ha-Seong Kim, from Joe Jimenez, from all of these different guys, who, by the way, Joe Jimenez now has a locker in the clubhouse. He's back. He's not ready to pitch. He's not ready for a rehab assignment, but he has a locker at the clubhouse. He's returned from Florida. He's that much closer, right? Which is amazing because we just assume we'd never see him again. Can you imagine adding 2023 or 4 Joe Jimenez to this bullpen? Holy cow. Go look at... If you want to see one of the reddest StatCast cards you're going to see for anybody associated with the Atlanta Braves, go look at the Joe Jimenez 2024 StatCast card. That sucker is bright red. And he did a third of that with torn cartilage in his knee. But they're freeing up money from Joe Jimenez. They're freeing up money from Ha-Sung Kim. There's money coming off the books. If AA is finally going to go get a starter in free agency, you can see how Casey Mize would make a ton of sense. You can see how he's a guy that, Southern guy, grew up watching the Braves, has pitched really well. He has the pedigree we've always seen Auburn like. Auburn. He's from Auburn. That's the other reason I'm hyped on this too, is because I've met him. I've met him personally. He's a great guy. But he has a lot of that pedigree that the Braves like, former number 1 overall pick. There's a lot to like about Casey Mize. I could see a move like that being made. But you could also, it'd be frustrating, you could also see the Braves sit back and say, no, we're good. Look at all of these names we just mentioned. That's what they did in the offseason. They got a lot of positive health reports all winter on every single one of these starters. And AA told us, I think it was December before the winter meetings, he said normally every year we get some sort of concerning news about 1 or 2 rotation guys over the winter. And so we have to mentally adjust what can we expect to get from those guys. And he's this year, great health reports on everybody. And they were healthy until they weren't. And you lost 4 guys in spring training. You've gotten Waldrop back. You briefly got Strider back and then lost him again. But it would probably be a mistake. It almost certainly would be a mistake to not go out and get a starter at the deadline. You could see how the Braves, and specifically Alex Anthopoulos, could argue they didn't need to. That would probably be a mistake. And even if they have information that everybody is healthy and everybody is effective, remember, you could only judge a decision by the information they had when they made it. Even if they have positive health reports on all of these guys, the recent history shows that every single person in there is a health risk. Every single one. One of the common things that pops up a lot in the Braves Today Discord, which if you want to join, by the way, links in the episode description or the show notes, is there is no such thing as a healthy pitcher. There is just a pitcher that has not been hurt yet. And AA has been at times too willing to act like, hey, these guys are healthy. When the proper way to look at this is probably these guys haven't gotten hurt yet. And the frustrating part of that, if you are the type of person to believe that he has significantly erred by not going and adding a starter, the hard part of that is you can look at those list of guys that I named and you can say, there's his reason to not trade for anybody. And again, I don't think it's the right idea. You've got options there. Herson Waldrop has options. AJ Smith-Shawver has an option. You can move guys down. You can move guys to the pen. You can put guys on the IL. You can do different things. But hopefully they get somebody. My vote is Casey Mize. I feel like he'd be a good combination of price and ability and could work as a number 2 behind Chris Sale this year. That'll do it for a very long episode of Braves Today, about 50 minutes. Thank you for being here. Apologize that this dropped a little bit earlier than normal. Wanted to get this done, get these thoughts out before the roster moves that are probably going to happen today. If I'm able to, I'll drop another episode to talk about those, especially if there's something weird in there we're not expecting. But please like the video, please subscribe both here and at bravestoday.com. Lots of fun stuff there. I dropped over 2,000 words this morning on Austin Riley and kind of what's going on there. What are the odds he comes back? Diving into different reasons why he is struggling as bad as he is and talking about that stat from last week from Himbo of ESPN about Riley's OPS dropping for 5 consecutive seasons and how he's the youngest player in MLB history to have that happen. So go check that out, bravestoday.com. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.